And Shirley, we are on.
Hi, I couldn't hear a thing. That's why I
Neither.
was sitting
I
there.
didn't either. I don't know what happened. I didn't hear it either.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I am spiritual medium Kelly White. Hello, everybody.
And John, of course, our wonderful producer, is
Hello,
here.
everybody.
How
Good
are
to
you
be
this
here.
evening?
It's good to be here. How are you guys?
Good.
Very good. We had a big snowstorm here.
That's right. How many inches?
About 8.
Oh, my
Good
goodness.
question, Cheryl.
Not that
It
I
was,
would know the difference, but they always ask that. So,
I know. No, it was unbelievable. It was really, in fact, it knocked out our ability to get we couldn't watch the Academy Awards until for
oh,
yeah, I was really bummed. And because I had been waiting all day for that. I had to get my LA fix. And anyway, Don fixed it. We finally got it about an hour into it, but at least we got it. So I was happy about that.
oh, that's good. That's good.
Yes. So,
So, what's going on with the planets and the energy? I'm
okay.
always fascinated by that stuff.
Well, first of all, we had major full moon,
Yeah.
yesterday and the day before, or Friday and Saturday, and it was very intense. And so I don't know about you, Shirley, but I had more calls from people and more texts from people about how upset they were, how miserable they were, how awful things were. It was just a very intense few days there with that moon. Really
Mhm.
was. And having said that, today we have Venus conjuncting Chiron. So Venus is the planet of love and relationships, and personal values, and Chiron is the wounded healer. Okay,
Mm.
so when those two conjunct, meaning they're right next to each other, Chiron is considered the bridge of the zodiac. And so it kind of looks like the visible planets like Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury. It bridges the invisible planets like
Mm.
Uranus and Neptune and Pluto. So this bridge, what it does when it bridges with Venus, it's really interesting. It makes us aware of what hurts for us. It makes us,
Mm.
and it brings our wounds to the surface. So, because of that full moon and because of this, we're dealing with our wounds. Okay. This is what's going to go on.
Wow.
And this period of time that we're in has the ability to transform the wound, whatever your wound is, into a
Mhm.
gift. So let's say you have lack of self-worth, then that becomes emotional maturity. That's the gift of it. Or
Mhm.
let's say you have anger, but
Mm.
actually you can turn that into passion. That's the gift of that. Or let's
Mhm.
say you're really shy, but it actually can turn it into quiet confidence. So these are the kind of things that are possible now. And the most
That
important
is
thing,
so
isn't
interesting.
it interesting? And the most important
Mhm.
thing
Mhm.
is it really transforms fear into love, which is everything that we've all talked about. There's just
Mhm.
fear and love. So this
Yeah. Yeah.
ability now has the ability, I should say, to transform fear into love, and it means to choose love over fear. So if you're in a situation and your wound is out there and you're feeling overwhelmed for a lot of reasons, really start to bring it in and start to ask yourself how you can move through this and transform it into a gift and realize that it is a gift. Whatever the wound is, it's a gift. It all
That
is for the gift of our soul, for our soul to grow.
I mean, that's fascinating. So transforming wounds into gifts, which
Mhm.
is so
Yeah.
there's something so poetic and so beautiful about that. And
Hmm.
it's kind of what we do too. As
Hmm.
therapists, you help people transform their wounds. Because
Absolutely.
it, Peter Levine always says that when we transform our trauma and our wounds, it's beautiful. It's they have this. I think we've
Mhm.
done this before, John, where we've put that kind of the Japanese have a saying and have a bowl with gold, and they say, when the bowl cracks, you fill it with gold because then it becomes more
Oh,
beautiful. So it's kind of like what you're saying,
yeah.
transforming our wounds into gifts,
Yeah.
and we become certainly more complex, more layered,
Hmm.
more wise,
More
more
wise
mature,
wisdom.
and,
This
and
is
and I think in
key.
that there's a beauty in that.
Yeah, that was called
Absolutely.
kintsugi. Kintsugi. That's
Hmm.
the Japanese word for repairing broken pottery by mending the areas of breakage with gold, silver,
Wow.
or platinum.
Yeah.
And that would certainly be Venus conjunct Chiron right now. So that's a good
Wow. So that's
example of that.
Mm,
transforming wounds into, you said,
Wounds into a gift.
mhm.
gifts. That's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Why,
Like,
thank you,
you should
Cheryl.
write that down somewhere, John.
I'll do an article on that one
I
because it's a
think you
good one.
should. I
I
think
think I
that's
will.
beautiful. Yeah.
I got a whole
Well,
list of stuff, but I'll add that to my list.
I think you should. And how apropos, because we have the
Right.
perfect
See,
guest
there
for
we
this,
go.
who
Cool.
talk about transforming a wound into many wounds into a beautiful gift. Dawn Everett, I met her many years ago when I was assisting in somatic experiencing training, and she was assisting as well. And I just fell in love with her spirit. She has just the most beautiful, just I don't know, curious spirit that I just fell in love and became fast friends. And so she is a body oriented therapist and a trauma recovery therapist. And now we're going to call her a resiliency therapist.
Which I
She's
love.
experienced, yeah, because it's so true. She's experienced with a comprehensive set of recovery tools that has helped her personally build trauma resilience and empower her clients on their own healing journey. She will share her powerful testimony of recovery and help you tap into what's keeping you stuck in functional freeze. I love that term because it's so true. That part of the nervous system that holds you back from living the vibrant life you were meant to live and experiencing the aliveness that fuels your joy and passion. So without further ado, welcome, Dawn. So excited that you're here.
Hi.
Hi, Dawn.
Really nice to see you.
Hi.
So you went through a huge, I mean, maybe you can help maybe on how you got started in SC and what happened and how you got through that, because what happened to you was just unbelievably
Yeah.
extraordinary now that you've, turned into a beautiful part of who you are. But boy, you went through it.
Well, when I heard your story, Dawn, I had to have you on the show. I had to.
Mhm.
I just thought it was so profound from what happened to you to where you are now. And
Yeah.
you really talk about, going from survival to thriving.
Right.
Just blew me away. So please share with us your story.
Thank you. I think I'll start, Shirley, with how I got to SE. I was doing body work, massage therapy at a treatment center, and the people coming through on my table, they all had trauma. So I wanted to address that. And so somatic experiencing came across my way 3 times. I'm like, okay, so I need to look at this.
Right.
Delve in. That was 11 years ago. And I
Wow.
just delve in full force, and I haven't looked back. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. Yeah. The event that you're talking about, the most recent event,
Yes.
was about 2.5 years ago. I was coming home from the gym, walking across the street, when a woman hit me with her car, and it took me under the car and then dragged me 30 feet.
Oh my goodness.
So, I ended up with a really bad shattered ankle. And so I had to have 2 surgeries and learned to walk twice. And, there was that, but the biggest piece, I think, was the near-death experience. Just
Wow.
I mean, that
almost,
really was an exit point for you.
oh yeah. I dissociated at the time of impact.
Wow.
Thank goodness for that, right? Thank goodness we have that ability in our brains to check out when things get really intense.
Yeah.
That is not something I wanted to remember.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I love the way that you're posing it, because some people feel like there's something wrong with them, and it's just the brain helping you survive.
Oh yeah.
Those moments. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant what the brain does.
Brilliant. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
God.
Yeah. And so, coming back from that, there was a lot of things in place to help me come back from that. One, I had an amazing support group in my family, in my friends, and that is essential, is having a very, supportive group of people around you. You know, in order to go from survival to thriving, you have to have safety. So
Yeah.
you have to be in a safe situation to be able to move out of that survival loop
Mhm.
and into a place where you can start to thrive and climb and explore and discover and do all the beautiful things that life has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Mm.
those are some of the things that helped me along my journey in
Yeah.
recovery. About a year, I wasn't able to work, so I did SE sessions. I did sessions with Peter Levine.
Mm.
Wow.
Those were powerful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done sessions with Dave Berger, also
Mhm.
powerful, a whole different kind of session, right?
Yeah, he's up in the Bay Area, and he's by trade by training a chiropractor, correct?
Nope, physical therapist,
Physical therapist.
and he's
Okay.
also an MFT.
Yeah, and then right, he's an MFT, and he's also one of the teachers now in SC training, and has created his own training as well. Correct?
Base,
Called
yeah.
BASE. What does it stand for? Body.
Yeah, it's relational bodywork and somatic education. And essentially, it is a form of therapy for trauma, specifically using very attuned touch and connection, a relational touch, if you will. So you're seeing the whole person, you're not just seeing a body part. And just connecting with them so they feel met. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful work. He also does concussions and PTSD and brings that in. And that was very helpful for me also. I've had several concussions.
Wow. I can imagine. I mean, as you know, I had a traumatic brain injury, and that's how I became a medium, was from a traumatic brain injury. And at the time, I didn't know about somatic experience or any of that. I mean, what an amazing tool to use for that, frankly.
Yeah, I feel so blessed that I had the support group that I had in place.
Yes. Well,
Very,
and I would say, and you and I talked earlier, it's a planned event. When you have such a big ticket item in your life, it's a planned event. So you planned before you came in to have really good people around you. So you could really learn a lot to delve in to help other people, you
and
know?
when you say a planned event, that whole accident was a planned event.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about that. And I say that because the woman who actually hit me, I knew her. She won the chili contest at the block party that I held. I used to hold a big block party for the community, and we had a chili contest, and she won that contest. And one of the gifts was a massage with me, and then she started getting regular massages with me until
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
And then my schedule changed, so we didn't see each other for several years. And when I saw her name come up, I went, "Oh my gosh!" I'm not going to say her name, but I couldn't believe who it was that hit me. I'm like, I know her.
That's just such a karmic situation.
And then when we got to the hospital, the surgeon who actually did the emergency surgery on my ankle was somebody my husband went to high school with. So these two things.
So there you go. I mean, it was meant to be. I mean, it was an event that would have put you in a position to help others with everything that you've learned, you know?
So true. I have gathered so much information from this
Yeah.
event, which I do use with my clients, and I'm so looking forward to being able to share that knowledge more and more with people.
Yeah. Wow. And I love that that you call yourself a resiliency coach. I love that. And that you say giving the soul a more comfortable place to live. I love that.
Oh, that is beautiful. That really is. It's such a beautiful combination of both.
Well, it is because, when there's so many traumatic wounds, it's hard to be in the body. And so as a spiritualist, I see these people kind of walking on air and I'm like, no, get into your body, get into the body. It's
And you
it's
can
not
see
easy
them.
to do. You can see them out there. And we had talked earlier that you do work with recovery. And can you talk a little bit about that?
I do. I've worked at a treatment center for 15 years. And in that treatment center, I run groups where I teach the clients there, the patients there, how to come back into their body again, because they've been using drugs for so long, it really takes them out of their body. And so through these various exercises that we do, it slowly invites them back in their body, and they get to test the waters to see if it's safe again. And we slowly build that resilience and the capacity for them to inhabit their body once again.
So what's an example of an exercise that you use to see how comfortable you are to be in your body?
Well, one of the ones I use is one of my favorites. It's a 3 drawing exercise. So the first drawing, I have them, I give them 2 minutes. So timing is really important. I give them 2 minutes to draw how they see themselves right now. So they draw how they see themselves right now. And then
meaning how they see their bodies?
Nope, just any way, just however they want to interpret how they see themselves right now. It can be a big circle, it can be wiggly lines, or it can be an actual how they see themselves right now, body, right? The second drawing is draw your biggest problem, right? So then they get 1 minute on that, because we don't want them to spend too much time in that trauma vortex. We don't want them to spend too much time in that negative space. So they draw that out. Usually it has to do with addiction, but not always. Sometimes family, things like that. They flip that over. And then the last one is draw yourself how you see yourself with your biggest problem resolved. Right. And I give them 3 minutes on that so they can really steep in that. How do you see yourself with your biggest problem resolved? And then we just done a pendulation. Right. So starting off with a baseline, this is how I am. We tap into a negative sensation, and then we come out into a positive resource. And the way I do that in a group is I go around, they share their pictures, and then I help them track what happens in their body as they talk about each picture.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's great. They get it. They get it. And sometimes cravings will come up, and they see there that bottle of vodka or whatever, and a craving will come up, and it's like, well, notice how craving feels in your body rather than just being an impulse that you're going to. Notice how it really feels in your body. Now look at the resource. Check out the resource. How does it feel to be in that resource? What happened to the craving? Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
Got it.
The resource being something that brings something positive to them.
Yes.
And in this case, the drawing of how themselves healed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's one of the exercises that I use in the group.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It's so important to notice how well you can be in your body or not.
Yeah, it's important to notice how well you can be in your body or not, you know.
And how comfortable you are.
A lot of them, it's for the first time they realize they're not embodied.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. So before they were using, then possibly the traumas had already been begun, so they were already up and out of the body.
Right. Most of them have significant amount of trauma, and so they use drugs, alcohol, or drugs including alcohol, to not feel those intense feelings that come up with wounds. Right? We were talking about wounds earlier, and they're just sometimes so painful that people may not have the tools to cope, or they find it really difficult, or they don't have the support, right? And so this helps to slowly build that capacity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what addiction is all about. It's not, not wanting to feel something that feels overwhelming, or that you've never tapped into, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Dr. Dan Siegel, where he said, trauma is relational. It happens in relation to someone. Even if it's neglect, it's happening because there isn't someone there. And so it has to be healed relationally.
Absolutely. And Dave Parker, he talks about relational, like falls, when it's in relationship to the earth, have your relationship to the earth now that you've fallen and you've hurt yourself. that's what we stand on. That's what supports us. That's what stabilizes us. So having a good relationship with the earth is really important as well.
Wow.
You're right, Shirley. Yeah, the relationship is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, being of avoidant attachment, mostly healed. But, I thought, oh no, I can do it myself. And it's so true that it's to heal it. And that's what therapy really is all about. Any kind of therapy, whether it's body therapy or psychotherapy, it's you're healing a wound in relationship with someone else, even if, this could be the first person you've ever trusted.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really important. That's that safety aspect again. Is it safe to come out and be myself? Is it safe to embody my body? Is it safe to experience joy? Sometimes pleasure is just intolerable. Like it's just too scary and I just can't experience joy. And so even that has to be titrated, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Somebody writes, is addiction an escape, trying to fill a void, or both?
I'd say both.
Yeah, I would say both as well.
Yeah. And there was a question earlier about what if you don't have any memories of your childhood? Would you like to say something about that, Dawn?
It's probably a good reason for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Carol was asking, yeah.
If you don't have memories of your childhood, your body remembers. So you don't necessarily have to have a narrative to work with the trauma, because you can if you have a very skilled, attuned S&P somatic therapist that can track what's happening in your body, they're going to catch it. They're going to catch what's going on with your body and then help you guide your way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, memories don't form many times. Well, depends on, memories can get fragmented. When there's too much chaos, the memory gets fragmented. So the emotional piece might be lodged, we'll call it in the unconscious, or the story piece will be lodged in the unconscious. But every time you look at the color blue, you feel sad and you're not sure why, and that can happen with neglect. I remember it was one of the people I was studying with who also said with neglect, there's nothing to stimulate a memory. So I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood.
How painful.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, where I came in. My childhood wasn't chaotic. It was just somebody called it, you know who that is, Kelly, I'll tell you later, an emotional desert. And so if there's no interaction to stimulate a memory, then you're not going to have a lot of memories because there was nothing, not so much nothing to remember, but nothing to stimulate a memory. But in chaos, it's too much. It's overwhelming the nervous system. And so the memory gets fragmented. So sometimes you'll remember a story. I'm sure you've all had the experience of somebody talking about the most horrific thing as if they're reciting a recipe and having absolutely no emotion. So the emotional part is completely out of their awareness, lodged somewhere else, or it could be the other way around.
I used to say, yeah, I could talk about it like it's the weather. It's like nothing, right?
Yeah.
We're dissociated.
Yeah.
A comparison of the empty desert versus the chaos and all of that coming in. It's true. It can be very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point of the body memory, I was working with this gentleman who had witnessed a horrific car accident and little by little started to be more afraid to drive. And so he was telling me the story. And as we're training in SC, you go frame by frame. So he's telling me, okay, first this happened. Okay, what are you noticing? And he's got nothing. He goes through the whole story and it's horrific. And he's thinking, nothing. I go, what are you noticing? Nothing. And then I had just gone through the training where I said, move your head just a little bit to the right.
Yeah.
Still nothing. He moved head to the left. And all of a sudden, all this memory came up because the accident happened here. So when he looked that way, his body remembered everything, the feeling, and that was the entry point. And then we could start working. Because otherwise it was so disconnected. I couldn't get it.
That's right. And that whole little bit of movement. That's all it takes.
A little bit of movement. That's all it takes. Yeah. To be able for the body to start to react.
God. What is functional freeze and how does one heal it?
Yes.
Well, so functional freeze is basically like you're disassociated all the time. You're walking through life and not not being embodied, not feeling anything, right? You're just, you're not able to form those connections, right? Because if you can't feel anything, then you can't form those connections. And so, and people just move through life. You spoke of it earlier, Kelly, of that walking brainstem. I love that visual. Walking
James
through
and I are
life.
writing an article called Walking Brainstems because we were just in Chicago recently, and we were both really kind of astounded by how many people were unconscious. They were not conscious of anything. They were just walking. You know, a brainstem
Mhm.
is in charge of breathing and getting hungry and things like that, but it had nothing to do with consciousness. And so people were literally asleep. They were just this walking brainstem. So that's where that came from.
It's interesting if you walk down the street and you smile at somebody, you look at their eyes and you smile at them,
Yes.
you'll see this response of fear all of a sudden, right? It's like they've forgotten how to interact, and it's just not safe, right? We come back to safety. In order to be able to come out of that, there has to be safety.
Yeah.
It gets locked down really tight. So you talked about there being a car accident, right? So just my car accident, right? So the car came from the left side here. So working with that would be, just kind of orienting, like you said, Shirley, to the left. But I might get frozen here in just like fear and shock of seeing that car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And you have to kind of sit with it for a while and really feel the tightness of the muscles, everything. My abs are getting tight, my shoulders are going up, my eyes are getting big, my jaw gets tight, right? I see that. And I just stay with all of that sensation for a while. And I'm here with you, but I'm still experiencing it. So I'm not there. I'm here. But I'm experiencing as if it was then, but it's now. Right?
That dual awareness. Yeah.
Dual awareness, exactly. And then all of a sudden, my body can deactivate, right? So we've moved through a little bit of that freeze response.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense that if your body turns that way and you see the car at that angle, that's where you would freeze. Your brain, talk about the brainstem, the primitive part of the brain.
Yeah.
That's what it does to keep you safe. So all of a sudden you'll dissociate. So that's where people can get stuck, is in that moment, because it's so shocking. You dissociate there. And unless you do the work that, somatic experiencing does, where you're able to sit with that and wait until your body comes back online in the presence of another, so you feel safe, then it gets stuck there.
Exactly. And then you'll be wondering why you can't look in that direction, why you look in this direction, or the opposite. Why are you hyper vigilant about this direction?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. I'll never forget the first SC beginning one. It was the trainer, and he asked someone from the audience, and she had this paranoid thing where she kept looking behind her shoulder, and she had never as a kid experienced any, assault or that kind of trauma, but she had this thing that someone was coming up behind her. And it had just started after a car accident. And so he did exactly that, took it really slow. Okay, imagine, and looking back and stuff. And after about a couple of moments, she remembered that she had a toolbox in the back of the car. And when she hit, it flew to the front and it cut her finger off.
Oh my.
And I'll never forget that she kept saying, it was just a toolbox. It was just a toolbox. And she just kept saying it was just a toolbox, because finally she was able to see why she was so paranoid looking behind her, is because the toolbox flew forward and it hurt her.
Wow.
Absolutely.
But the nervous system got stuck. There's something dangerous behind me. There's something dangerous behind me.
Right. And people, it's like, well, I wasn't attacked, because they don't think of that in terms of a trauma. They think that it could be war or abuse or
an assault coming from the back, which of course all of them are.
Yes.
But in
absolutely.
case something flew out of the back and it was a toolbox, and it did hurt her. And so there was that kind of, the nervous system got stuck in, there's something dangerous behind me. It's fascinating work.
And it's true. Like, the reason why he was able to catch that, I guess it was the teacher was able to catch that, slowing it down, just really slowing it down. Because if you go like this, you're not going to feel the somatic response to what was going on. Oh, there's nothing going on. But if you go like this, you're like, oh my God, I can totally see what's happening. And it's really slowing it down, because trauma is basically too much, too fast, too soon, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have that opportunity to respond, and protect ourselves. So
Yeah.
if we stretch out time, then we're able to complete that self-protective response we didn't get to do at the time of event.
My
Yeah.
gosh. So here's a question, spiritual and psychological question. What about trauma from the past, from past lives? Can somatic experiencing help heal that trauma? I absolutely believe it's a great question. And often, I'm sure this has happened to both of you, where you get clients and you don't know where the trauma is coming from. They really don't know. And maybe it really isn't from this life. I mean, do we bring traumas in? Yeah, we actually do. We do bring in some traumas. Paranoid things that you have no idea that came from this lifetime. Why you'd be paranoid of this, or why you'd be afraid of this, or why you're afraid of that. And that often, if you go to see a somatic body worker, that could absolutely help relieve past life stress. Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't always have to have the story. And there's some people that believe that they've had a trauma that may have not necessarily had that trauma.
Right.
But because they believe it, you work with it as if it is. The same with dreams, you work with it as if it is.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Your body is still responding to it as if. So it doesn't matter. And that's, I think, where past life can come in.
Yeah.
Where it might not have happened in this lifetime, but you're still responding to it.
Yeah, great question.
There was a question, John, that came and went fairly quickly, and I didn't get a chance to read it. If you can put it back on the screen. There we go. It's Linda saying, in my childhood, we moved a lot. A few years ago, I had to make a chart of what city we lived in for each grade in school. It bothered me when I couldn't remember when we moved from Houston to San Francisco.
Oof, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me curious about what happened between Houston and San Francisco.
Right.
Like there may be something going on there that you don't remember, or it just makes me curious about possibilities there.
Yeah.
There may be a, depending on how young. I didn't see how young she was.
It didn't say. Yeah, it said moved a lot. So yeah, I would be curious as to what age that particular move took place, because that can mean something. It's hard between the brain liking what's familiar, and a kid trying to find their social group and then moving and having to say bye to friends after a while. We moved a lot as a kid. You don't make friends because it's too hard and too sad to have to leave them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I moved a lot. My siblings moved a lot. I'm the youngest of 7, and I'm an aunt of 13, and I'm a great aunt of 29. But maybe it's right. Maybe it's 28 or 29. I'm not sure. And I'm a great grandaunt of 1.
Wow! Wow!
My siblings moved a lot. There was a lot of trauma in our history. So they talk about that, how it was just difficult to make friends. So what was the point?
Right, exactly. So Linda's saying we drove around the age of 8 or 9. So I think maybe Linda means that move happened around the age of 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Can trauma happen and be repressed and surface later in life?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's often what happens, actually. Sometimes people don't look at their trauma for years.
And it's important for practitioners and therapists not to interpret somebody else's experience. Let it come from them. Let them discover what's going on. Because if you add in interpretations, then you might be leading them or feeding them in one particular direction or another. And we don't really want to do that. We just want them to discover on their own what's going on for them.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you want their own memories to kind of bubble up?
Exactly. They might come up. Oftentimes people are like, I didn't think I would remember anything. But then as you started noticing what was happening in the body, then I also memories started coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely want it to come from the client and not an interpretation from the practitioner or therapist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it happens. I mean, it happens to me with my clients all the time. When we go into a sensation, up pops what seems to be a random memory that kind of, brings everything together that they haven't thought about in years, or they didn't,
Mhm.
they were
It's
told it
true.
happened, but they didn't remember. Yeah.
And if you slow everything down, things become more vivid. So by just slowing this down, I'm already seeing where the lady's turning. I'm seeing the front of her car, the color of her car,
Wow.
her in the windshield, So as you slow it down, things become more clear. If you go fast, then it's like, I don't know what I just saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So Nina has a question. So could a past life trauma come to this life and be worse? I think that's a question for you, Kel. Such as my hubby broke his neck in 2014 and was in a halo for 5 months.
So, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we choose before we incarnate of certain big ticket items that we're going to have experiences, are these experiences based on karma from past lives? Yeah, I'm sure they are. And I'm sure there's a formula on the other side that teaches us how to choose the event that we will have. And it sounds like his event was, it looks like he broke his neck. And so could that be from a past life? Sure. It absolutely could be. But dealing with it in this lifetime, very important. For somebody who's broken their neck and been in a halo, is he a good candidate for doing somatic body work?
Absolutely. Both touch and chair-to-chair work. Like chair-to-chair is like a psychotherapy model, and then touch work is a table model. And I will work with both. Sometimes it's not appropriate or a good timing to put somebody on the table, so we won't do that. We'll work from a chair-to-chair perspective. And then sometimes working on the table is what they need most.
Oh my gosh. So Nancy says, as a child, I witnessed an auto accident in which the driver died in the fire. Oh my God. I did not remember that event until much later when I was involved in a head-on collision. Freaked me out.
Oh my goodness.
Whew. All right, girls. Which one of you wants to take that one? That's a big one. That's huge, Nancy.
I don't see a question in there. So is there a question?
Well, I mean, I think that's huge, though, because we can get PTSD from witnessing.
Yeah.
The story that I told about the gentleman that I work with, he witnessed that accident. He wasn't in it, but it got to the point where he started to feel very afraid to drive. Yeah. So I would, Nancy, if you haven't worked with that, I'd be curious to see if it's affecting you in any way, as in the here and now, because many times those traumatic events, if we don't work through them, they will affect us in areas we don't even realize, that don't even feel related. So I would be curious and ask yourself that. And if so, I would certainly, recommend you working with a practitioner, with a somatic practitioner.
And when we witness a terrible event like that, it's called horror. When we experience it, it's terror. Right.
So, I like the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So Nancy says, oh yes, I had to get therapy afterwards because I wouldn't drive, I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
I bet.
Wow. And John, would you put up, there was another comma here about how do you choose which memory to work with?
Go ahead.
So in this work, there's so many choice points. There's always opportunity and various choice points to go with. And that would just depend on what's happening in the session at that time, what's happening in the body, what the body's wanting to bring up. So it's not necessarily that you're working with a particular memory, but kind of what the body wants to work with. Right. So you can be talking about a particular thing, but then all of a sudden we start tracking what's happening in your body, and you're like, now I'm thinking about this other thing, because they're overcoupled, so they get mushed together.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Stacy says, if you experience trauma while really young, like 3 or 4, can you work through it with this? I was pushed off a slide when I was very young and was hurt pretty badly. I'm deathly afraid of heights now, and I'm wondering if it's connected.
It might be. I mean, I can't say that it isn't unless I worked with you. But it could be, and you most certainly could do work, use somatic experiencing and base or NARM with that experience. And it would
Oh, absolutely.
hopefully.
You can work with trauma, you know, pre-birth trauma.
Yes.
And we have the sense that babies don't remember, but that's what's remembered is the baby has body memory. Dawn, I saw you react to that. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, you know, with the base work, it's amazing the work I've done. I've done rebirths of people essentially through their birth trauma, where I thought I was working with a concussion, then all of a sudden a birth trauma came through, and it's a particular kind of body movement. It's a particular kind of thing you start working with because it's pre-verbal, pre-memory. So you're only working somatically, and it's kind of astounding of what comes out where they get to choose whether they want to be born or not. And they have, sometimes they're like, I'm not sure if I actually want to be born. And so it's just this wonderful, beautiful process to work through that. Yeah. And I do that on the table.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's when I remember this gal came to me with absolutely no connection. I mean, as disconnected can be. She would tell me about her childhood, and there wasn't anything significant, wasn't anything too significant. And so then I said, how was your birth? Did you have? And there it was. She was a preemie. She was in an incubator for months. She was poked and prodded. And interestingly enough, right after that session, that same week, her grandmother, out of the blue, had found these pictures of her in the incubator and had sent them to her.
Wow.
Without
That's
a letter,
spirit working that way.
right?
Of course,
no
that means she
no
was able to hear it then. She could
Yeah.
actually hear it.
Yeah.
So it would all come
And it
together.
wasn't a letter, just these pictures in an
Wow.
envelope that she just received and opened up,
Wow.
like 2 or 3 days after our session.
That's mind, body, and soul. And the spirit guides all together. It takes a team to do this work.
It really does.
It sure does. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the body
And
does
that's-
have memory.
It's a good point too, in terms of working with a team. You can work with, you know, your regular psychotherapist, and then working with a specialist, a trauma therapist, somebody who is body oriented is very helpful, right? Working on the spiritual aspect of it, right? So it does take a team to really to work towards that healing process and that recovery process of moving into thriving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely it does. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you may need a message from the other side. You know, from, let's say you were in a car accident and somebody dies as a result, you may need a message from that soul, you know, not to hold on to it. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that I receive messages for trauma.
Well, I have to say, Cal, I mean, out of the many, many things that you've given me, one of the biggest gifts is to teach me that there are so many different entry points to heal. And I see and hear, even on this show, when people call in and you give them messages and it's so healing, you know, it's just, there are different entry points. And I think all of them should be considered.
Oh, absolutely. Because it may be trauma work, it may be medium work, it may be therapy, it may be any of the above.
Absolutely.
But I do know one thing for sure. We all have wounds. We all usually come in with wounds, then we gather more wounds. And so it's like this is a tough place to be, this dimension. Right? It's tough. So you really want to release as many wounds as you can and turn them into wisdom, turn them into gifts.
And resources and joy.
Absolutely. And we do come here to enjoy and to experience joy. We actually do incarnate for that reason, among others. But that's a big one, certainly. To have those moments, they're very important.
It is. It is so important not to forget about the beauty and the joy, and finding little pieces of it. If you can't find big joy, if you can't find big passion, finding little pieces of it, because they build on one another. And it is really important to be able to come back to that after being in
Yes.
the depths of shadow and doing shadow work and dark work. It's to come out to the light is so important.
Yeah, boy, is that true, because people have taken on so many deep experiences here, and to be able to come to some resolve and to do the healing and then to come out of it, that's where the beauty is for me. I love to see people that are, going from survival to thriving. I love to see it. And in my case, I had a traumatic brain injury and lost everything. Everything. I had to start all over again. Start my life all over again in my mid 40s. So that was a big deal. So when I heard your story about getting hit by a car, it just really brought me right to it. I thought it was I think it's so important, the work that you're doing, and surely the work that you're doing is so important, for everybody on this planet.
All of us combined do
Yeah.
It's a powerful team.
incredible work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ladies, we have a call that's pending from
Okay.
Texas.
Wonderful.
Texas is on the line with us. Can we have your name, please, and where you're calling from in Texas?
Hi, it's Carol. I'm outside of Dallas.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, Carol. What's your question today, Carol?
I was wondering about that. When you started talking about the womb and the birth, going back into that, I was just seeing that when I Googled something. There was therapy for that, and it's really weird. And I couldn't understand how you could get something from that. But then I just heard you explain it about having a traumatic birth and stuff. I think I'm going to do that because I was a twin. I'm that mirror twin girl.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's it. She's the one. Tell Dawn your story, because it's really interesting. You have a twin sister that you don't speak to anymore?
No, I don't. She's pretty much a narcissist. I don't know. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I had to.
But when you have a mirror twin, and did you have a traumatic birth?
We did. Well, we both weighed 3 pounds each. 1 3 and 1 3 1/4. But we were in the hospital. We were C-section, but we were in the hospital for about 6 weeks each.
Wow.
For 6 weeks until we were. And before that, talk about trauma, my poor mother lost my sister to, I think she lived 6 hours. Her lungs weren't fully developed. And then she had us. And then we were in the hospital.
Wow.
And she's not with us anymore. She's finally with my sister. But,
wow. God, that's really traumatic.
We were talking about the childhood too. I think I had a really bad childhood. I was saying I couldn't remember. I remember some things like Easter and things that happened. We had fun. We'd go fishing with my grandpa, but just not a lot. Like some people can tell you, rattle off a bunch of stuff, that happened to them when they were kids growing up.
What is the best thing to do when you start with this kind of trauma, when you in the womb? I mean, you have a mother that has already lost a baby, and then she's pregnant again with twins, and then they arrive early, and they're in the hospital for 6 weeks. How does somebody work with that?
It's complicated. There's so much going on there. There's a lot of fear, I would imagine, on the mother's part of losing her babies. And so that's going to be affected in utero, in the womb. Also, babies in ICU, for 6 weeks, they don't get held a lot. So there's not a lot of that bonding and that holding, right? So bonding might be difficult. Something to think about.
I feel that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I can.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
You
did
ever get
that
body
with
work?
my children too. With my first one, I couldn't bond with her.
Yeah. So it gets perpetuated,
So
right?
scary.
It keeps going and going and going. Do you ever get body work? Do you ever get touched?
Pardon me?
Do you ever get massage therapy?
No.
Mhm.
No, but I've been thinking
So
about getting Reiki therapy.
Reiki. I would do something where you're actually getting physical touch. And you can start with yourself in the shower just by doing this. And something you might say to yourself as you do that is, I exist. I exist. Right? And go through your whole body. I exist.
Oh, I exist.
Yeah,
Okay.
you do. Yes, you do.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. You can look up also, John, can you put the somatic experiencing website?
Sure.
And if you click on find a practitioner and you put in the city that you're in, you can find a practitioner in your area.
And did you say Houston? There's a lot of SEPs in Houston.
I think it was Dallas, just outside of
Dallas?
Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah. Thank you for calling,
Thanks
Carol.
for calling, Carol.
I was Googling this, and then now this is the topic.
See, again,
Not a
spirits. That's how
coincidence.
spirit works. Not a
Yeah.
coincidence. All right.
Wow.
Thanks for
Synchronicity.
calling.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You bet.
Appreciate you
Thank you,
calling,
ladies.
Carol.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye.
You got him.
I loved what you did, Don, with the I exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to remember that. That's really important.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kelly, here's an interesting one for you. Do you think people who cross over in spirit and come and visit you would kind of influence you to maybe put your hand on, and to like hold yourself, or to just like hold your hand or rub your hand or anything like that? Because I've been doing that quite often now. And I'm wondering
Absolutely.
if it's my mom sort of wanting
Absolutely. I
to.
got chills on that one. Yes.
Wow.
Especially
Okay.
John's mother just died. So absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it could be them giving you a loving embrace too.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You
saying.
know?
Kind of not possessing, but you know what I mean? Sort of
Mhm.
just like talent, like, I don't know, influencing you
Abs-
to sort of rub your
Absolutely.
hand or rub your body. So
Mhm.
when she said to touch you and say, I exist,
Yes.
that brought up that feeling that.
Yeah, I love that, John. Yes. And I
Mm.
think, and I exist is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley, you're always talking about that, existence. We exist. You exist.
Yeah.
And getting into the
And
body.
I remember, I'm sure you've been there, Don, when Peter, with some people who have that existent piece, will say, these are my words, but say them and see how your body reacts to them. He says, I'm alive. I remember when I was going through my training, that would tear me up. I'd have to almost leave the room because it would be so overwhelming. And this was happening with someone else, not with me.
Wow.
But it's that existence piece, and to your point, Don, my mother would always tell the story that I was pulled out by forceps. So talk about not being sure if you wanted to be here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So true. And birth is often traumatic,
Yeah.
I mean, frankly.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of them are doing these water births and things like that, like, with the doulas and all of that, because they don't like the hospital setting and all the trauma that comes from that hospispital setting.
I'm glad that I was in a hospital setting because
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, no, that's the truth. I told my daughter, she said, I'm going to have a water birth. I said, no, second one, I don't care if you go to Mars, but the first one, you are in a hospital.
That's funny.
I think because I've taken classes on the birth and what happens. And I think it's great to be in the hospital setting just so you have all the, if something happens, but to have someone that can help guide. Because when you see, there's Aileen LaPierre that teaches about that, you see the baby can organically find itself, and the umbilical cord is still pumping, and it should be cut after it finishes pumping, not right after when you first birth. And that's a lot.
And now
that kind of shocks the baby into.
Yeah.
There's this thing too that if you breastfeed while the umbilical cord is still connected, it actually contracts the uterus and sends more blood into the baby and sends more nutrients into the baby. If you're able to do that, and some hospitals are very accommodating, and they offer water birth and everything in the security of the hospital. But
there's just so much that we know. I mean, talk about a shock to a baby. The baby is breathing through the umbilical cord, and they cut it off before it finishes. So the baby is shocked into life. And then when it's not breathing yet on its own because it was breathing through the umbilical cord, you slap it. So you shock it into life. I mean, when you understand what it does to the body, I mean, you have a whole new.
They say it's so much easier to die. Being born is the hard thing.
Well, that's a good question.
No, but that's really true. I mean, it's easy to leave the body. I mean,
that's a great question, because I've heard mediums say that the soul is not in the baby until the baby is out of the body.
The soul enters, it comes and goes, and enters really, a few weeks before the baby is born fully, and then fully starts to stay in there. I mean, it all depends on the soul, but it goes back and forth, John.
Okay.
From the very beginning. So it's in and out and in and out.
Or that's the soul choosing not to be born. Is that correct? The
soul has a good year to make that choice, actually, in that body. Yeah, that soul. This is why there's SIDS. I mean, the soul really can say, I just don't want to do this.
Never mind.
I don't think so.
I had a teacher say, no crib death. So have that baby close to your heartbeat.
Always.
It regulates with you. So it's like the nervous system.
Right.
You help the baby regulate its nervous system. You're also regulating the heartbeat, the mother is. So keeping that baby close to you at night is important.
I agree. 100%. So Shar says, I had an emergency C-section. I'm sorry. I had a room full of when one nurse in particular holding my hand came to find out there was only the physician, a midwife, and my husband. Wow.
That gave me chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
do any of us survive any of this?
I know.
This dimension's fraught with situations.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, but you brought up some great points about touch. I mean, I work in virtual reality, and that's one thing that we don't have is touch. And then there was recently a video that actually has gone viral, that shows a woman being reconnected to a CGI or a digital version of her deceased baby daughter. And she's reaching out and she's trying to hold the baby, and her hands are going right through her because it's just a visual. So she can't touch her. And so I was like, well, what if they brought in somebody, because this was a toddler, the baby, or the daughter who passed. What if they brought in a toddler, because she's got a headset on? So if they brought a toddler in for her to reach and actually touch, she would feel that she's actually touching the visual in the headset, even though, because what was happening was her hand was going right through it. You know what I mean? Because she was reaching.
I don't know how good that would be. I'd have to give it some thought.
That's what I was saying. Would it be re-traumatizing, or would it be sort of like a real nice reunion?
I mean, first of all, you can't do a 2-year-old, because then you're not listening to what the 2-year-old actually needs. In that moment, there's a lady maybe touching the 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old's going, what the hell? So you're kind of traumatizing the child, or you can run the risk of that. And I'm not sure. What are your thoughts about that, Dawn? It doesn't feel right to me, but
it doesn't feel right to me either. What can happen in somatic experiencing is that you have that somatic memory of what it was like to hold your child. You're not going to forget that. The body knows that. And you can come back to that, and you can remember what it's like to hold that child, and have a somatic reference to that.
Yeah.
So that's how I would work with it. I'm not familiar with that world so much.
Yeah. It's
so
very
it's curious.
controversial in that regard. I mean, I've never seen this done where they've taken somebody who is deceased, you know, I guess sort of brought them back to life in a in a different dimension sort of thing, and then the mother is actually reaching out for the daughter, who looks exactly like the daughter who passed, but yet when she goes to reach for her, she can't hold her.
I think they're playing with fire. I think they're they're going to re-traumatize people.
That's what I thought so too. And I believe in that as a medium for healing. So, but not in this particular case. I think that it is re-traumatizing.
I think that it has its limitations, and I would wish that people who are creating the virtual world understand that, and I don't think that they do necessarily, because it does have its limitations. It's like Don said, it's about touching, real touch. That creates the illusion of, just like the internet does, the illusion of connection, and which on the one hand can be helpful, on the other hand can also cause you to be more isolated and not get the help of real, in this case, real touch. You know?
Yeah, that's one thing that does not exist is touch and smell.
Exactly.
The pheromones play a role in the you know, the smell part too. So like when you meet somebody, there's pheromones that are involved. So, you know, it's very interesting, that digital world, but they are developing synthetic touch, which is called haptics. So you wear a suit so that if someone touches you and they're wearing a suit, they both feel it at the same time. So it's going to be synthetic touch, but it's not going to be the same thing as, you know, skin to skin kind of contact. So it's just very interesting to see the world that we're going into. And if people are curious about that, they can watch the movie Ready Player One that has a lot of that in there. So, but we're running out of time.
I was going to call the old question. I don't know. That stuff.
I'm right there with you.
People who have like agoraphobia and things like that, who are afraid to leave, and they are socializing at least. It's kind of like a visual conference line in many ways, you know?
And that's what I meant, where I think that it can be very helpful in some areas, but they need to understand that it does have its limitations.
Yeah, I'm with you there. 100%.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for joining us.
Really, thanks
for having me.
Terrific.
Thank you, for sharing your story and everything that and you know, and now helping people at, I think, a different, I'm not going to say deeper level, because you were an excellent somatic practitioner before this happened, but just at from a different place.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, our audience loved you. Thank you for being on the show, Dawn. And just want to remind everybody to please check out the Both Sides Now TV community group. We are always looking for more people to join our support group, and it's a great place to be. And we post most of our content there. So, but we'll be back next week.
Okay, see everybody next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.